Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us on the All Night Channel, and we are going to be taking another quick look at the race for mayor of Chicago as two black women, Lori Lightfoot and Toni Preckwinkle, are running for the mayor's race, and that's going to be on April the 2nd. And again, joining us from Chicago to give us an update and an analysis of that is Jeff Berkowitz. And Jeff, thank you for joining us on this Saturday.
Thanks so much, Terry. You know, if people want to know what's going on, it's now Lori's race to lose. I mean, that's my prediction, Terry, is that Lori is winning, and she should win this. I know there are 2 weeks left, 16 days to be precise, and a lot of things can happen. But unless something awful happens to the Lightfoot campaign, or, you know, really, unless something happens awful to the Lightfoot campaign, Lightfoot will be the next mayor of the city of Chicago. I'll predict that today.
And Jeff, what accounts for that? Why is Lori Lightfoot, who's never held elective office before, pulling away from Toni Preckwinkle, at least as far as the polls are concerned?
Timing and style and perception are often everything in politics. You and I talk a lot about issues. We're kind of, we're issues kind of guys, okay? But, a lot of this, as they say, is the test. Would you like to have a cup of coffee with this woman? Would you like to have a beer? Is she nice? Do you want to sit down? So there's that test. But more in this case, this has been going on for a while. People are thirsting for change. They thirsted for change in 2008 with Obama. They thirsted for change in 2016 with Trump. They're thirsting for change in 2018 in Chicago for their mayor. And Lightfoot, she's just perfect for change. I mean, she's not a politician. They are so tired of having politicians, people who they view as corrupt and lying and not genuine. And they're all not like that. You know that, Terry. So do I. But and Preckwinkle just falls right into that. 20 years as an alderman, 8 years as a Cook County Board president, chairman of the Cook County Democratic Party. Gosh, she's got politicians written all over her. And she plays to that. She says, look at my great experience. Every time she does that, she hurts herself. Every time. So,
it strikes me that sometimes when we look at elections, again, perceptions, as you were talking about, matter so much more than sometimes the issues. On the issues, without going into too much detail, is there a big difference between Toni Preckwinkle and Lori Lightfoot?
Hardly any. They are progressives. They advertise themselves as progressives. Look at Chicago. The Republican Party is at best 20%. And for the mayor's race, there's nobody here who's a Republican. It's a nonpartisan race, Terry. But if they made it a partisan race, when they had 14 candidates, all of them would have told you they were Democrats. So, and these two are the progressive of the progressive, okay? So, pensions, that is just not an issue there. It's a mess. Neither would amend the Constitution. Neither would go to bankruptcy. They'll just work it out. They won't even tell you how they will, okay? They're both very vague. CPS, you had enormous issues about rapes and all sorts of problems with schools and education, no difference. Violence, terrible problems in Chicago, no difference. I mean, Terry, if you press me, we could talk about that. But if you said to me, Jeff, would any of those differences matter in who's going to win for mayor? No. I mean, it's an important issue. We should find out about these people. We should be public spirited. But if your viewers want to know who's going to win, we don't have to talk about issues. We just have to talk about what we're talking about.
So, what strikes me then is if the perception is that Lori Lightfoot is the outsider and the voters of Chicago are looking for an outsider, then ironically, where we think about if you're trying to go up the political ladder, as Toni Preckwinkle has, from going from an alderman to now Chicago, or president of the Chicago Cook County Board, it seems that Toni Preckwinkle, if I take your point, that Toni Preckwinkle's biography is working against her as someone who has had a long record of holding political office because people are looking for an outsider. Is that more or less the gist of it?
Precisely, yeah. I mean, every time she touts She's so proud of it. Maybe she should be. It's not an easy job running Cook County, the Cook County Board in Cook County. And it's a lot of difficulty. It's complex. You could argue somewhat similar to running the complex operation in the city of Chicago. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Okay. It just hurts her. If she were to say, oh, and I am Cook County Board President, but more to the point, as mayor, I realize you folks want to do things differently. You know, you want to cut out corruption. And I'm going to do that. You know, she might be subject to attack, but that would be way, way better than what she's saying. Okay. So that's what she'd have to do. I mean, and it's just, in fact, you know, what did she do in her ads coming out of the box? She attacked Lori Lightfoot for what? For being a lawyer at Mayer Brown, one of the top 5 firms in the city of Chicago, nationally, internationally. You know what? A lot of people don't know that level of detail, but they kind of sensed it's not a terrible thing when a person comes up from poverty, goes to a good law school like the University of Chicago, top 5 in the country, and becomes a lawyer at one of the top firms. Hell, most people would like their kids to do that, okay? So they like their kids to be like Lori Lightfoot. And what? And you know, Berkowitz attacked Lightfoot for working for this law firm where she said they defended people who were charged with mortgage fraud and all. You know what? They know there are 2 sides to a story, and that, you know, Berkowitz was telling them the bad side. And it didn't help her at all. Did not help her in the least.
So many times money is a big issue. Is money a big issue here? Now that we're down to 2 candidates, do we see the big money interest, whether it's the corporations or the unions or those who have contracts with the city? Are they pouring a lot of money into this race? And if so, how is that money breaking?
Well, yeah, they are. In the last week to 10 days, these 2 folks are about even. They both brought in about $1.5 million. Now, Lori's got a bit more personally, so she put in maybe $300,000 of her own. But you know what? Where did Tony's come from? 60% of hers came from SEIU, major union that would be does business with Cook County, does low-level healthcare work might be doing it with the city. Might be a conflict there, you might say. Chicago Teachers Union, whoever's the mayor is going to sit down with the board and negotiate a teacher's contract. 10% comes from the Chicago Teachers Union for Berkowitz. 15%, this is just the last week, okay? United Farm and Commercial Workers, okay? UFCW, and other individuals, 15%. So that's Berkowitz. She's getting it from the unions, in particular from SEIU and from the Chicago Teachers Union. What about Lightfoot? I said, you know, she has a fair amount of money. She's not tremendously wealthy, but she has the ability to give her campaign herself in the last week to 10 days, a few $100,000. She's done that. But who else? Who else? The Latino Leader Council, okay, recently formed organization that is Jesse Ruiz, who is known, well-respected Hispanic. Luis Gutierrez was a part of that, which might still be. Chuy Garcia. Now, those people didn't give the money. The organization did $90,000. The Bloom family, which is the kids, the father's a real estate casino magnate. It's business. Forget what you think about real estate or casinos. He's a business guy. This business guy is now choosing between 2 candidates, and he and his family appear to be leaning toward who? Lori Lightfoot.
Everyone knows that this is historic in one way because we have 2 black women, and on the other hand, we have the pride of neighborhood. There's a growing Hispanic community in Chicago, as in other parts of the nation. Do we have any idea of where the Hispanic vote is going on this, or does it not matter at this point?
Well, it's hard to say. And, you know, the Hispanic vote, a number of these folks are not citizens. They don't vote in the same frequency and intensity as, say, the African-American minority vote, but they do vote, and they're voting more. And we know that Gary Chico, who got 6% of the vote when he was one of the 14 candidates, he's endorsed who? Lori Lightfoot. We know that Paul Vallis, who got 6% of the vote and well respected, not enough to win the election or get into the final runoff, but everybody says if there's an issue, Paul's got a plan. Who does he support? Who did he support? Lori Lightfoot. That's another 6%. If that's 6% for Chico and 6% for Vallis, if they can translate them into votes, obviously not all of them will be there. That's significant and really important. Really, really, really important. Willie Wilson got 10% of the vote. He's African American. He's self-made millionaire, well-respected and well-known in the Black community. Got 10% when he ran in 2015 for mayor, and got 10% this time. Who did he go with? He talked to Preckwinkle. He talked to Lightfoot when he was making up the decision. He went for Lightfoot. So that's three big candidates who Lightfoot and Preckwinkle were running against. They both wanted those three, and they all went where? Lightfoot. So big momentum is going Lightfoot.
Have any of the previous candidates endorsed Preckwinkle?
I haven't heard of that. So, you asked about the Hispanic vote, and I immediately thought of Chico because he, of course, is Hispanic, and he endorsed Lightfoot. I haven't heard of Mendoza, another Hispanic in the race.
And let me ask you just before we run out of time. It sounds like Lightfoot's winning the race for endorsements as well as apparently being ahead in the polls.
Endorsements of, just let me correct, endorsements of the prior candidate.
Endorsements of the prior candidate, right.
And she did pick up some union support. She picked up the iron workers. She picked up the painters, not a big unions. Tony's got SEIU and CT, Chicago Teachers Union, but she had that before. So if we're talking about which way things are going now that we're in a runoff, Lightfoot's picking up some union endorsements. She's picking up the candidate endorsements. She's ahead in the polls. She's the change candidate.
There's apparently, I believe there's still some debates that are going to be scheduled. And as a reminder to the viewers, this is coming up on April 2nd. So there's not, as we tape this on the 16th of March, there's not a whole lot of time left for Ms. Preckwinkle to make up the difference. Do you see any way that she can make up, Tony Preckwinkle can make up the difference between now and Election Day?
She would need an enormous shift in strategy. She would have to say, prior stuff wasn't working. I'm going to make myself into the change candidate. All her ads have to go into change. She has to come out and say, you folks want change? I agree with you. You want somebody who's going to make sure there's less corruption? I agree with you. You want somebody who's going to listen to you, hear what you have to say about taxes and efficiency. I agree. So she would have to, I don't know that would work, but that's better than doing what she's been doing. And you know what? She needs to do that at the debates. Apparently there are 4, I think, this week. WTTW is one on Thursday of this week. On the 21st, the day before, ABC 7. Both those will be televised live. So if you in a prime time, 6 to 7 on Wednesday night, Thursday night of this week, the 21st, 7 to 8, you come out swinging, not throwing mud, talking about change and saying, you folks want change? I am change. Now, whether she can say it credibly, I don't know, but you got to try, don't you, Terry? If you're in a runoff, and let's face it, it's going to either be at this point Preckwinkle as the mayor or Lightfoot as the mayor. Make it about that. Lightfoot even talks. She takes her name and makes it that. She says, "Come to the light." People look to the light for guidance. They look to the light for change. This stuff sounds a little hokey as I'm saying it, but
well, let me ask this before we run out of time here. Sure. Since Lori Lightfoot has not been a candidate for elective office before, how has she handled herself in this race as a candidate?
I think she's really handled herself well, and I've just she's grown a lot. But she's been in this, 10 months, year. She's And she didn't come out strong because, as you say, she hadn't been a candidate before. She was somewhat stiff. She was focused on the wrong issues, more national issues. And as time has gone by, month by month, she became more polished. She became more at ease. She heard more of what people were saying, and she addressed those issues. So right now, in terms of her political ability, well, I'd say she's ahead because, one thing, she's 56. Tony Preckwinkle this Sunday turned 72. Now, that's a 16-year difference. And I'm not an ageist, Terry, but I think, again, it's another disadvantage. I mean, Trump won, but he was running against somebody when he did who was similar in age. But Trump's like 71, Hillary's similar age. But it's another thing to overcome. You can overcome it, But, years ago, we read about this, we see clips of JFK running for president at 43. People like youth. They like enthusiasm. They like hope. Right now, Lightfoot's the candidate who's given that to the people of Chicago.
And just let me just throw one thing out. I was going to close it out, but it's how much is Toni Preckwinkle, is she damaged by the sugar tax that she had pushed, and then it met with such opposition that they had to rescind it. Is that part of this race, and is that something that maybe is not being discussed because it's in the past, but people still remember and fear that Preckwinkle is going to be one of these people that taxes anything that moves?
Well, they may use it. I mean, it was referred to early on, or when there were 14 candidates. Gary Chico was running on, I'm not going to raise taxes. He was a no tax kind of guy, he said. And so he raised it because he was shooting at everybody, including Preckwinkle. And he said, there was that sugary tax of Toni Preckwinkle in an ad. But if I'm Lori Lightfoot, I don't have to go there. I'm ahead. I'm the change candidate. She could raise it. It might win her a few votes. She might remind people of this. But as you say, that's past. I mean, I've seen Lightfoot when she was talking. Well, I saw Mendoza when she was talking about Daley. She said this, what he had done and what he was bad. And she said, but that's past. She said, what Daley did in the past, that's past. And he should stay there in the past. So if I'm Lightfoot, keep talking change. Keep talking future. Keep talking hope, growth, and opportunity. Keep talking how you're going to make things better, okay? I wouldn't go to the sugary tax. I mean, you're on a roll right now. Keep talking change and how you're the candidate of change and how you're going to be sensitive to people, what they want to change, and you will change it. I mean, don't distract them, right, Terry? Focus on what's key, what they want, and what they want to hear.
Jeff Berkowitz, we've already gone longer than we intended to go, but this is obviously the major municipal race and a historic one, rightly or wrongly. You don't want to just be focusing on people's sex and demographics, but two black women running against each other, and whomever, whether it's a black woman or a white Caucasian male, whoever is the mayor of Chicago always has quite a bit of influence over the number of lawmakers in the state legislature. The political footprint for the mayor of Chicago is always makes them one of the most powerful people in the state of Illinois. So it's something that all of us, whether in Chicago or in the suburbs or downstate, should be paying attention to. And we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us on that.
Well, let me just say too, Terry, just remind people, we'll be coming back. We will, I hope, if you'll invite me back, Terry, we'll talk a little bit about the issues in the next 2 weeks. We'll talk about these debates. But I mean, we're here to give people something that they're not getting somewhere else. And folks, if you're watching this, you can get in touch with Terry and me. If you find somebody else who's made an out-and-out flat prediction of who the winner's going to be 16 days before, you get in touch. Because I don't think any of our competitors have done that. And I didn't do it for that reason, but you do want to be impactful. You do want to give people something they can't get somewhere else. And if everything, here was my thinking. If Lightfoot's ahead and I'm looking at it and I'm digging and I'm finding out biographical stuff and other stuff, and it's all going Lightfoot's way, should I hide it or should I tell the viewers Lightfoot's going to win and here's why? And I think we did that. And I'm not for her. I'm not against Preckwinkle. I don't have a horse in this race. And I try to be balanced. And I'm not telling anybody not to vote. This may change. I'm just saying, if you asked a person objectively who is winning now and why, I think that's what we gave them today, what we gave our viewers. But, I'm not pulling for anybody.
No, we want to make it clear. We don't endorse candidates, but we do want to, certainly the people, as I speak in as one who is now downstate, while it's important who's elected mayor of Chicago, even if you don't live there, we just don't get the information around the state that you get inside Chicago. People are not necessarily listening to Chicago radio or watching Chicago TV or reading the Chicago newspapers. So we appreciate you taking the time to give us the lowdown. Right now, it looks as if Lori Lightfoot is the one who, if you were a betting person, would be the next mayor of Chicago, but it is not over as yet. And perhaps we can visit with you again, Jeff, before April 2nd, and you can recap this after some of these other debates.
One thing, you just said, they don't see this, they don't watch all that in Chicago. They don't have to. We do it for them, and we'll give it to them condensed and tight and to the point. So we watch, we read, so they don't have to, right?
That's right. Jeff Berkowitz, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Thanks so much, Terry.